Welcome to the Free Black Girl Podcast. This is a space for joyful healing, learning, and collective liberation. My name is Najma Ahmed, and you are listening to a series of mini podcast episodes called Lessons from Liberation. I shared my first season of the podcast, all the ways in which I got free from the unhealed trauma, people pleasing, and really from any person, place, or thing causing me to betray myself. Now, these lessons from liberation are based on what I learned last year after asking myself, now what? I started a blog during that time, the Freedom Pages, and I'm sharing what I reflected on in real time. Last week, we talked about the exiting of the cave and surrendering to the stillness so that you can hear and feel what is calling to you in this moment. After that point comes the decision to leap into your new life. So let's get into this week's lesson. When I was younger, I used to love the show Quantum Leap. I'd sit and watch with my mom on the Sci-Fi Channel. And if you're not familiar with it, the premise was that the main character in the show would leap through time and wake up in a completely different life with a new identity, a new body outwardly presenting, a new set of people around him. He landed in a parallel universe. And each time he landed, he didn't know who he was anymore. He had to figure it out by observing how other people treated him. That's how he started to understand his role or his mission in this new life and what he was called to kind of fill, his critical piece of the puzzle that he was called to contribute in that timeline. He tried to fit in. He tried to make it work. But the entire time, he was still grasping, still hoping to return to his original timeline, clinging to who he used to be. That was the tension of the show. And at the time of writing this and now, I think that's also the tension in my life. I feel like I've woken up in a completely different timeline. I still remember my old life. I can see it. I can feel it. But I'm no longer living in it. And instead of looking outward to be told who I am, I'm being called inward to decide who I want to be. What struck me when I was reflecting on Quantum Leap is how often we define ourselves by how others respond to us. We build our identity around these mirrors, but real freedom, the kind that sticks, requires us to stop waiting for someone else to name us and to start remembering who we've always been at our core and who we're capable of becoming. And maybe even more importantly, we have to let go of the person that we used to be. Because the truth is, you cannot fully enter a new timeline if you're still tethered to the old one. You can't bring all your old habits, fears, titles, survival strategies, and stories with you. The old world gave us a script. We knew our role. We knew how to perform. But now we're free. But there's no director, no cue cards, no map. It's liberating, and it's also terrifying as hell. It said, how do you know you're on your right path? The path disappears. So the leap is terrifying because the path is gone. For maybe the first time in your life, you have no clue what's about to happen, but you feel it. You feel something big coming in. But you just have to trust and let go and trust that you'll be carried. That's a deep trust in yourself and spirit. But when I think about it, actually, I bet you have done it before. I did it when I left home at 17 for college, when I left Ohio at 23, moved to Florida for a little bit, and then to DC now 17 years ago. And so many other times over the years in my life and in my career, times that I spoke about in the first season of my podcast, like coming into my sexuality at 37 years old and being an entrepreneur now in my 5th year. So looking back, it wasn't even maybe that I'm afraid to leap. I've done it. I was tired. Last year, when I wrote this blog post, I was kind of in a time outside of time for me. And reading it back now feels kind of like a foreshadowing a bit of where I am right now, which will unfold as in real time as these episodes go on. But now, in this next leap that I'm taking, I'm realizing this is the first time that I'm finally free. Free of other people's expectations, free of other people's definitions of who I'm supposed to be, free from addiction of achievement and external validation, free to be as weird and as radical as I want to be. And maybe that's even, as I'm thinking about it, a lot of the fear is that now I get to be the person that I've always wanted to be. The opportunity is right here. Everything that I want is right here for the taking. But first, you have to let go of all the things that you've been attached to, the identity that you've carried. I thought about this as I was putting this episode together, and even thinking about how this year, February, marks 7 years since I started my healing journey, and the significance of 7, that I have been through these cycles. And last year when I was writing this blog and in that space in my life, I was feeling stuck. I was feeling like, how many more times am I going to have to live this same lesson and go through this same cycle with things that I was struggling with around abundance and scarcity and around attachments that I was still carrying and habits that I had been wanting to release for years and years. And I even remember to my therapist, I was talking to her last year, and I got frustrated because at one point I was talking about something that I was struggling with, and she said basically that I could just decide not to do the thing that I was doing anymore, that I could decide to move forward in a different way. And I was like, what do you mean I can just decide? I don't think I said this to her. I wrote about it. I might have said it to her later, but I was really frustrated because it sounded so simple. And if it was like, if I could just decide, I would have done it by now. But really, it took me all of last year to really sit with, why can't I decide to let go? What is it that I'm still attached to? And so that's what I want you to really think about. I want you to journal. How have you allowed yourself to leap in the past? What are you holding on to that is time to release? How are you still attached to your old identity? What comfort is that identity providing to you? What would it look like for you to repeat the same cycle in 2026, this year, that you have in the past, without choosing to evolve past the attachment this time around? Because we're going to come across the same cycles. That's life. We face the same scenarios. I'll talk more about it in other episodes, but it's like you're fighting the big boss at each level. And so, yes, you go through this cycle, but ideally you're evolving each time. But when we're stuck and when we're not releasing who we used to be, that's what's hindering our evolution. But it's a choice. It's a choice, and it's humbling when you know and you realize and you got to deal with it. Look at yourself and know that it's really up to you whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready to decide to take that leap and evolve, you can. What would it look like to let go and leap? What is the best that can happen? Again, I want you to journal these. I want you to sit with these questions. Ask yourself, will you forego the best case scenario to stay comfortable? Or will you choose to fly? As Toni Morrison wrote, if you surrender to the air, you can write it. Thank you for joining. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Afterwards, if you're feeling good, leave me a comment and a 5-star review everywhere you get your podcast. I really hope these lessons from liberation help you, as you being with me in community helps me to grow. And as always, I want this to be a conversation. So leave me a comment as well. What new world are you leaping into?